The camera flash woke me, a white burst behind my closed eyelids that registered in my semi-conscious brain as wrong, invasive, dangerous. My body remained paralyzed on the massage table, muscles liquefied by whatever he'd put in that lavender-scented oil. But my mind screamed at me to move, to run, to do something other than lie there exposed under the thin cotton sheet. Before I start my story, I would love to know what city you are joining me from. Feel free to share it in the comments. Now, let me immerse you in this story. I forced my eyes open to slits, fighting against the weight of my own eyelids. Through the blur of my lashes, I watched him adjust his phone, angling it downward toward my bare back. Another click. The sound ricocheted through the dim room like a gunshot. My fingers twitched, the only part of me that would respond, scraping uselessly against the vinyl upholstery. He hummed softly, that same meditation track melody he always played during sessions, as if photographing unconscious clients was part of his regular routine. Maybe it was. The thought sent ice through my veins, cutting through whatever sedative coursed through my bloodstream. How many others had lain here like this? How many photos existed of women who'd trusted Healing Hands therapy, who'd believed the 5-star reviews and the certification hanging on his wall? I tried to speak, but my tongue sat thick and useless in my mouth. Only a small groan emerged, barely audible over the tinkling wind chimes in the corner. He didn't react, didn't even pause. His footsteps moved around the table, soft, measured, professional. The phone appeared above my face now, its dark lens staring down at me like an empty eye socket. "Beautiful," he whispered, and the word made my skin crawl, despite my body's inability to physically recoil. My right hand closed into a fist, nails digging into my palm. The pain helped, sharpened my focus. I concentrated on breathing, on forcing oxygen into my lungs, on burning off whatever drug was holding me captive in my own flesh. The appointment had started normally. The intake form, the discussion of my chronic shoulder tension, the offer of his special therapeutic blend that would help me really let go. I'd let go, all right. Let go of my consciousness, my control, my safety. The phone clicked again. Then again. He moved to the foot of the table, and I heard the sheet rustle, felt cool air hit my legs. Panic exploded in my chest, adrenaline finally breaking through the chemical haze. My left foot jerked, kicking out weakly. He froze. The room fell silent except for my ragged breathing and the relentless wind chimes. "Ms. Edwards?" His voice carried practiced concern, the same tone he'd used when asking about my pain levels. "You should still be resting." My jaw unlocked enough for words to scrape out. "What are you doing?" Continuing story. Block 2. My question hung in the air between us like a blade. He stepped back into my peripheral vision, phone disappearing into his pocket with a smoothness that spoke of practice. Too much practice. His hands came together in front of his chest, that gesture therapists made, the one meant to convey openness and trust. "Just documenting the session," he said. "Standard procedure for therapeutic progress." The lie tasted metallic, like blood. I forced my head to turn, muscles screaming in protest as I fought against the drug's grip. The room tilted and swam, but I caught sight of the wall behind him. No camera, no documentation equipment, just framed certificates and a shelf of essential oils arranged with meticulous care. My arms responded finally, elbows pushing against the padded table. The sheet slipped down to my waist as I struggled upright. Cold air hit my bare skin, and my hands moved instinctively to cover myself. He took another step back, palms raised now in a gesture of surrender that meant nothing. Please, you need to lie back down. The aromatherapy blend can cause disorientation if you get up too quickly. Aromatherapy. The word sparked fury that burned through the remaining fog. I swung my legs over the side of the table, feet finding the heated floorboards. They felt distant, disconnected, but they held my weight when I stood. The room spun violently. I grabbed the table's edge, knuckles white, waiting for equilibrium to return. Give me my phone. My voice came out stronger now, each word deliberate. His expression shifted, concern melting into calculation. He glanced toward the corner where my belongings sat on a wicker chair. My purse, my clothes, my phone that I'd silenced and tucked away before lying down on this table like a fool. Of course, but first let me help you. I lunged toward the chair, stumbling but staying upright. My shoulder collided with his chest as he moved to intercept. The impact sent pain radiating down my arm, but I kept moving. My fingers closed around my purse strap. He grabbed my wrist, not violently, not yet, but with firm pressure, thumb finding the pulse point. Ms. Edwards, please? His other hand reached for my shoulder, that practiced therapeutic touch. You're not well. I yanked free, spinning to face him. The momentum carried me backward into the wall. Picture frames rattled. A certificate about deep tissue certification crashed to the floor, glass shattering across the boards. The sound seemed to wake something in him. His jaw tightened, shoulders squaring as the mask of professional concern finally cracked. Sit down. No more soft therapeutic voice. This was command, authority, the tone of someone used to being obeyed. My hand plunged into my purse, scrabbling past wallet and keys and lipstick tubes. The phone's smooth case slid under my fingertips. I pulled it out, but my coordination was still shot. It tumbled from my grasp, bouncing once before skidding under the massage table. He moved fast, faster than someone in healer's clothes should move. His foot came down on the phone before I could drop to retrieve it. The crack of expensive glass echoed in the small room. Through the table's legs, I watched him grind his heel, ensuring the screen splintered completely. That was clumsy of you, he said, that false gentleness returning. I have a landline you can use, after we discuss what you think you saw. I pushed off the wall, legs unsteady but functional. The room still tilted slightly when I moved too fast, but adrenaline was burning through whatever he'd given me. My destroyed phone lay in fragments beneath his shoe. The sight of it, deliberate, calculated destruction, sent ice through my veins. He stepped toward the desk, positioning himself between me and the only exit. His hands hung loose at his sides, deceptively relaxed. Professional training showed in his stance, weight balanced, ready to move in any direction. Those same hands that had needed tension from countless shoulders now represented something entirely different. I scanned the room with new eyes. The massage table dominated the center space, its heating pad still glowing amber. Essential oil bottles lined a wooden shelf. Lavender, eucalyptus, peppermint. The cabinet where he'd retrieved that iPad stood partially open, revealing towels stacked in precise rows. Everything organized, controlled, maintained. My gaze caught on the small window behind the desk. Second floor, but not impossible. The street below carried afternoon traffic, distant voices, the normal sounds of a weekday in the city. So close, yet separated by glass and 20 feet of vertical drop. You're thinking about that window. He moved laterally, maintaining his barrier position. It's painted shut, Building codes, you understand? Fire Marshal made them seal it last year. The lie was obvious in how quickly he offered the information. My fingers curled into fists, nails digging crescents into my palms. The pain helped focus my thoughts, cutting through the remaining fog. A door stood to my right. Not the exit, something else. Closet, maybe, or storage. I'd never noticed it during previous visits, camouflaged by the same calming beige as the walls. Its brass handle caught afternoon light slanting through the window. "Look at me, Miss Edwards." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "We can resolve this reasonably." Instead, I lunged for the closet door. My shoulder hit it hard, hand twisting the knob. It gave way easier than expected, sending me stumbling into darkness. Shelves lined 3 walls, packed with supplies. Linens, bottles, equipment. The space smelled of detergent and synthetic vanilla. No exit, no salvation, just a dead-end box barely 6 feet square. His shadow fell across the threshold before I could back out. He stood framed in the doorway, one hand pressed against the jamb, blocking escape. The fluorescent light from the main room created a halo effect around his silhouette, making it impossible to read his expression. "Wrong choice," he said quietly. My hands swept the shelves desperately, fingers closing around something cylindrical. A spray bottle, furniture polish, by the lemon scent. I aimed it at his face and squeezed. The mist caught him across the eyes and nose. He jerked backward, one hand flying up to his face, the other still gripping the doorframe. I barreled forward while he was blinded, driving my shoulder into his chest. We both crashed into the massage table. It rolled backward on casters, slamming against the wall with enough force to knock 3 framed certificates loose. They fell in sequence, glass exploding across the hardwood in glittering waves. He recovered faster than I'd hoped, grabbing my forearm and twisting. Professional technique. Not violent, just efficiently controlling the joint. I felt my elbow hyperextend, pain shooting up to my shoulder. My knees buckled involuntarily, body responding to the mechanical leverage. "Enough!" His shout cracked through the room. The landline sat on the desk, ancient beige plastic with a coiled cord. Close enough to see, too far to reach with him controlling my arm. He followed my gaze and actually smiled. Not the warm, therapeutic expression from before, but something colder, more calculating. "Go ahead," he said, releasing my arm and stepping back. "Call whoever you want." The offer froze me in place. My arm throbbed where he'd gripped it, already forming bruises in the shape of fingers. He moved to the desk chair and sat, gesturing magnanimously toward the phone. The confidence in that gesture told me everything. He'd already thought this through, already planned for this contingency. I rushed the desk anyway, snatching up the receiver. Dial tone hummed in my ear, such a normal sound in this abnormal situation. My fingers hovered over the keypad, muscle memory ready to punch 911. "Think it through first." He leaned back in the chair, hands folded across his stomach. "What exactly will you tell them? That you fell asleep during a massage?" My finger pressed the 9. The tone beeped. "That you're confused from the herbal tea I gave you with your full knowledge and consent?" He tilted his head, studying me like I was an interesting specimen. "That you saw something on my personal iPad that upset you?" One pressed, another beep. "Go on then." His voice remained perfectly calm. "Complete the call." Let's see what they make of a client who's broken my property, destroyed my phone, assaulted me with cleaning chemicals. He gestured at the shattered glass littering the floor, the overturned furniture, his reddened eyes still streaming from the Polish. My thumb hovered over the final one. The 3 digits glowed on the phone's display, waiting for completion. But my hand wouldn't move. The weight of his words settled into my bones, cold and heavy as concrete. I slammed the receiver down instead. The plastic cracked against the cradle, a sharp report that made him flinch despite his composure. My breath came in ragged bursts, chest heaving with fury, and the nauseating realization that he might be right. The room did look like I'd torn through it in a rage. The massage table lay on its side, sheets tangled across the floor. Glass glittered everywhere. The chemical smell of nail polish remover still hung thick in the air. Smart choice. He stood slowly, brushing imaginary dust from his pants. Now, if you'll just... I lunged for the door instead. My bare feet slipped on scattered magazines, nearly sending me sprawling, but I caught myself on the doorframe. The hallway stretched before me, a narrow corridor leading to the reception area. Freedom. Witnesses. Someone who could see what was really happening here. He moved faster than I expected for a man his size. His shoulder hit the door beside my head, slamming it shut just as I'd managed to pull it half open. The wood cracked against my knuckles. Pain exploded up my arm, white-hot and blinding. I stumbled backward, cradling my injured hand against my chest. "We're not finished talking." His voice had lost its therapeutic softness entirely now. "Sit down. Go to hell." The words scraped out of my raw throat. I backed toward the massage table, putting the overturned furniture between us. My injured hand throbbed in time with my racing pulse. 2 fingers were already swelling, possibly broken. He didn't advance, just stood blocking the door with his arms crossed. The position should have looked casual, but every muscle in his body remained coiled tight, ready to spring. We circled each other like fighters in a ring, neither willing to break eye contact first. The iPad still glowed on the floor where I'd dropped it. Photos of other women frozen mid-screen, their faces slack with unconsciousness. How many? 10? 20? More? My stomach lurched again at the thought. All those faces, all those violated moments captured and stored like trophies. "How long?" I heard myself ask. "How many people have you done this to?" Something flickered across his expression. Was it pride? "Does it matter?" "To them it does." I shifted my weight, testing his reaction. He moved a half step closer to the door. "To me, it does. You'll forget all about this by tomorrow." He said it with such certainty, such absolute confidence. "The tea I gave you has interesting side effects. Memory disruption. Confusion. Most clients don't even remember falling asleep, much less anything after." The room tilted slightly. Or maybe that was just my vision swimming. I pressed my good hand against the wall for support, feeling the textured wallpaper rough beneath my palm. How much time had passed since I'd woken? 10 minutes? 20? The clock on the wall showed 3:47, but I couldn't remember what time my appointment had started. "That's why you're so calm," I said, pieces clicking together through the fog in my brain. "You've drugged me before? I've been here before." His silence was confirmation enough. My stomach dropped through the floor. The past 6 months of weekly appointments scrolled through my memory like a corrupted film reel. All those sessions where I'd felt unusually relaxed, where time seemed to slip away faster than it should. The afternoons I'd driven home feeling strangely disconnected, blaming it on stress relief or deep tissue work-releasing toxins. Every time? My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Not every time." He shrugged, as if we were discussing something mundane. "Just when the opportunity presented itself, when the schedule was light, when you wore something particularly photogenic." Bile rose in my throat. I swallowed it down, forced myself to stay focused. The window behind the massage table showed the parking lot 3 stories below, too far to jump. The door remained blocked. The phone was across the room, and we'd already established that calling the police might not go the way I hoped. But the iPad was still within reach. I dove for it. My body hit the floor hard, knees cracking against the hardwood. Glass shards bit into my palms. The iPad's smooth surface slid under my fingers as I grabbed it, clutching it to my chest as I rolled away from his reaching hands. He'd moved faster than I'd anticipated, but not fast enough. "Give it back." No more pretense of calm now. His face had gone red, veins standing out in his neck. "That's private property." "Private?" I scrambled to my feet, holding the tablet between us like a shield. "These women didn't consent to being your private collection. You can't prove anything." But his eyes tracked the iPad with desperate intensity. "Those could be anyone, anywhere. Stock photos, downloaded images." My thumb worked the screen, muscle memory navigating to the Photos app, even as I kept my eyes on him. The gallery opened. Hundreds of thumbnails filled the display, organized into folders by date. I tapped the most recent one. My own face filled the screen. Eyes closed, mouth slightly open, body positioned in ways I definitely hadn't chosen. The date stamp showed last week, then the week before, then the week before that. Months of Thursdays, each with multiple shots from different angles. My stomach lurched as I scrolled through the images, each one worse than the last. The timestamps stretched back over a year. 52 Thursdays of violation documented in crisp, high-resolution detail. Some shots focused on my face, capturing the slack-jawed vulnerability of unconsciousness. Others showed the full table, artistic angles that framed my body like a museum exhibit. He'd even adjusted my limbs between photos, creating different poses like I was made of clay. The iPad trembled in my grip. My breathing came shallow and fast, each inhale catching in my throat like broken glass. The room tilted sideways for a second, walls seeming to pulse with my accelerating heartbeat. I forced myself to keep looking, to catalog the evidence even as bile rose in my throat. "Delete those." His voice had gone quiet now, dangerous. "Delete them right now, and we can forget this ever happened." I backed toward the window, keeping the massage table between us. My bare feet found purchase on the smooth floor, toes curling for grip. The late afternoon sun streamed through the glass behind me, casting long shadows across the room. His shadow stretched toward me like grasping fingers. "You're insane if you think I'm deleting anything." He moved around the table, not rushing but methodical, cutting off angles. His hands hung loose at his sides, but tension coiled through his shoulders. The professional mask had completely shattered, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. This was a man used to being in control, used to having power over unconscious women who couldn't fight back. But I was awake now. I grabbed the aromatherapy diffuser from the shelf beside me. The ceramic vessel felt solid in my palm, filled with water and essential oils. Lavender scent had filled this room an hour ago, meant to relax me. My arms swung in a wide arc as he lunged forward. The diffuser connected with his temple in a wet crack that echoed off the walls. Water and oil exploded across his face. He stumbled sideways, one hand flying to his head, while the other grabbed blindly for support. His fingers caught the massage table's edge, but his weight pulled it off balance. The portable table collapsed with a metallic shriek, folding in on itself and crashing to the floor. I ran for the door. My shoulder hit it hard, fingers scrabbling for the lock mechanism. The chair he'd wedged under the handle shifted slightly but held. Behind me, I could hear him cursing, could hear his footsteps closing the distance. My nails caught under the chair's wooden edge, splinters driving deep into my fingertips as I heaved upward. The chair clattered away. My hand found the doorknob, twisted it. The door swung open 6 inches before his palm slammed it shut above my head. His body pressed against my back, pinning me to the wood. His breath came hot against my ear, reeking of coffee and rage. Stupid move. I still had the iPad clutched against my chest with one arm. My free elbow drove backward into his ribs with everything I had. The impact sent shockwaves up my arm, pain exploding through my funny bone. He grunted, but didn't back off. His hand grabbed my hair, fingers twisting in the braids I'd spent 2 hours perfecting last weekend. He yanked my head back, exposing my throat. The iPad slipped from my grasp. I watched it fall in slow motion, watched it tumble through the air between us and the floor. The screen hit first with a sound like breaking teeth. Cracks spiderwebbed across the glass surface, but the device stayed lit, my unconscious face still visible beneath the fracture lines. His grip on my hair loosened for just a second as he tracked the falling tablet. That second was enough. I twisted hard to the right, using the door for leverage. My body rotated under his arm, and suddenly I was facing him instead of trapped against the wood. His eyes widened as my knee came up fast and found its target. He doubled over with a sound that was half gasp, half wheeze. I shoved past him, grabbed the broken iPad from the floor, and pulled the door open wide. The hallway beyond looked impossibly bright after the dimmed ambiance of the massage room. Elevator banks stood at the far end, maybe 30 feet away. My legs pumped hard, bare feet slapping against commercial carpet. Help! My voice cracked on the word, months of silent Thursday complicity finally breaking into sound. Somebody help me! A door opened to my left. A woman in yoga pants stepped into the hallway, arms full of rolled mats. Her mouth formed a perfect O of surprise as I sprinted past, hospital gown flapping open behind me, clutching a broken tablet covered in my own violated images. Behind me, his footsteps pounded closer. Story block 6. I crashed into the yoga instructor, sent her mats rolling across the carpet like purple logs. She stumbled backward, caught herself against the doorframe. Her hands came up instinctively, defensive, not understanding why a wild-eyed woman in a medical gown was barreling through the wellness center's hallway. Call 911! I wheezed the words, didn't stop moving. My shoulder clipped hers as I pushed past. The elevator banks were still 20 feet away. 20 feet might as well have been 20 miles with him closing the distance behind me. His breathing came loud and ragged. I could hear the wheeze in his lungs, the aftermath of my knee finding its mark. But he was taller, his legs longer, and he was gaining ground. My bare feet found no traction on the low-pile carpet. Every stride felt like running through water. The elevator call button glowed white in the distance. I stretched my arm forward, willing myself faster. The iPad's broken screen bit into my palm where I clutched it. Sharp glass edges cut into my skin. Blood made the device slippery, but I held on. This was evidence. This was proof of what he'd done every Thursday for months while I lay unconscious and trusting. His hand snagged the back of my gown. Fabric tore with a sound like ripping paper. I felt the cotton give way, felt cool air hit my spine as the garment split. I twisted hard, let the gown slide off my shoulders entirely. Better to run half naked than let him drag me back to that room. The yoga instructor was screaming now, her voice high, and piercing. Other doors were opening. Faces appeared in doorways, curious, concerned, confused. A bald man in running shorts, an elderly woman with a towel wrapped around her wet hair. They stared at me, at my bare skin, at the blood streaming from my palm, at him pursuing me with murder in his eyes. "Stop her!" His voice boomed through the hallway, authoritative, commanding. "She's having a psychotic break. I'm her therapist." The lie hit me like a physical blow. I saw doubt flicker across the faces watching us. The bald man actually stepped forward, blocking my path to the elevators. His arms spread wide, a human barrier between me and escape. "Move!" I didn't slow down. The iPad came up in my bloody hand, screen first, showing him the cracked images. "Look at this! Look what he did!" The man's eyes dropped to the screen. I watched his expression change as his brain processed what he was seeing. His arms lowered slowly. He stepped aside just as I reached him, his mouth working soundlessly. My palm slammed into the elevator call button. The white light turned red. Above the doors, numbers descended. 7th floor, 6th floor. Moving too slowly, far too slowly. I spun around, pressed my back against the cold metal doors. He had stopped running. He stood 15 feet away, chest heaving, one hand pressed against his side where I'd need him. His massage therapist uniform was rumpled, untucked. Sweat darkened the fabric under his arms. His face had transformed from the serene, professional mask I'd known for months into something raw and desperate. "You don't understand what you're doing." His voice was quieter now, almost pleading. "Those photos are part of your treatment documentation, standard procedure for tracking physical therapy progress." The lie was smooth, practiced. I watched heads in the hallway turn, considering. The elderly woman with the wet hair frowned, uncertainty crossing her features. "I came here for massage therapy." My voice shook, but held steady enough. "Not physical therapy, and I never signed consent forms for photographs." 5th floor, 4th floor. The elevator crawled upward from the lobby far below. My fingers found the emergency call button beside the doors. I pressed it hard 3 times. Somewhere in the building, an alarm would be sounding at a security desk. He took a step forward. The bald man in running shorts moved to intercept him, doubt replaced now with dawning realization. Another man emerged from a doorway farther down the hall, younger, muscular, wearing gym clothes. He positioned himself beside the bald man, forming a wall. "I think you should stay right there." The younger man's voice was flat, hard. "Until security arrives." The yoga instructor had her phone out now, pressed to me ear. I could hear her voice, rapid and frightened, giving the address to emergency services. Other phones appeared in other hands, multiple people filming now, devices pointed at him, at me, documenting this moment. His eyes darted between the phones, calculating. I watched him do the math, watched him realize how thoroughly the situation had shifted. The hallway had filled with witnesses. The alarm was blaring somewhere below. Sirens would be coming soon. 3rd floor? 2nd floor. He turned and ran the opposite direction, toward the stairwell at the far end of the hall. The 2 men who'd blocked his path started after him, then stopped, looking back at me. Someone needed to stay with the victim. That's what their expressions said. I was the victim now, officially. No longer a compliant client who showed up every Thursday and paid in cash. The elevator chimed. The door slid open behind me, revealing an empty car. I stumbled backward into it, felt the solid wall catch me. My legs finally gave out. I slid down to the floor, the broken iPad still clutched in my bleeding hand. heads. The elevator doors tried to close, a hand thrust between them, forcing them back. The bald man from the hallway stepped in, lowering himself to crouch beside me. His knees cracked with the movement. He pulled a white handkerchief from his pocket, pressed it against my palm, where the iPad screen had sliced deep. "Keep pressure on it." His voice was gentler now, careful. "Ambulance is coming." I nodded, but couldn't speak. My throat had closed around something hard and jagged. The handkerchief turned red quickly, blooming like a flower opening. Through the open elevator doors, I could see other faces peering in. The yoga instructor still had her phone pressed to her ear. A woman in scrubs appeared, medical identification dangling from a lanyard around her neck. She knelt on my other side, took my wrist, checked my pulse with professional efficiency. Her fingers were cool and steady. Mine were shaking so badly, the tremors traveled up my arms into my shoulders. "Can you tell me your name?" The woman in scrubs spoke slowly, clearly, the way medical professionals do when assessing consciousness. "Nina." The word came out barely above a whisper. "Nina Edwards." "Nina, I'm going to check you for injuries. Is that all right?" I managed another nod. She ran her hands along my arms, my shoulders, checking for breaks or dislocations. When she touched my collarbone, I flinched. The bruise from last week's session throbbed beneath her fingers. How had I explained that away to myself? A deep tissue reaction, therapeutic inflammation. "Does this hurt?" She pressed gently on the darkened skin. "Yes." Her jaw tightened. She exchanged a glance with the bald man that said everything without words. They both knew what this meant. Evidence of prior assault. Pattern of abuse. How many women had lain on that table before me, unconscious and unaware? Sirens cut through the morning air outside. Multiple vehicles converging on this address. The woman in scrubs stood, walked to the stairwell door, propped it open. Voices echoed up from below, heavy boots on concrete steps. First responders taking the stairs because elevators were too slow in emergencies. 2 paramedics appeared first, carrying equipment cases and a folding stretcher. A man with gray hair and tired eyes took one look at me and immediately opened the larger case. He pulled out supplies while his partner, a younger woman with her hair in a tight bun, knelt where the woman in scrubs had been. "What happened to your hand?" I held up the broken iPad. She understood immediately. She took the blood-soaked handkerchief away, examined the gash running across my palm. Deep enough to need stitches. The glass had cut through skin and into muscle. I watched her work with detached fascination, as if this were happening to someone else's body. The gray-haired paramedic wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my arm. The Velcro ripped loud in the confined space. He pumped the bulb, watched the gauge. Behind him, police officers emerged from the stairwell. 2 uniforms first, then a woman in plain clothes with a detective's shield clipped to her belt. The detective surveyed the scene with quick, assessing eyes. She took in my bare feet, the robe hanging open over my workout clothes, the blood on my hand and smeared on the elevator floor. Her gaze moved to the broken iPad, then to the faces of the witnesses crowding the hallway. "Someone want to tell me what happened?" The bald man stood, his knees cracking again. He gestured toward the 3rd floor. "Man on 3 was taking pictures of his client. She woke up and caught him. He ran." "Where is he now?" "Took the back stairs, maybe 2, 3 minutes ago." The detective spoke into a radio clipped to her shoulder, rattling off a description I couldn't quite hear over the ringing in my ears. The younger paramedic was wrapping gauze around my hand, winding it tight to stop the bleeding. Each turn of the fabric brought fresh clarity cutting through the fog. He'd been doing this for months, every Thursday at 9 a.m. The same appointment slot, the same routine. How long did it take for the sedative to work? 5 minutes? 10? How many photographs existed? Where were they stored? Who had seen them? My stomach lurched. I turned my head just in time, vomited onto the elevator floor. The contents of my breakfast splattered across the tile. Oatmeal and coffee and bile. The paramedics didn't flinch. They'd seen worse. The woman held my hair back while my body convulsed again. It's okay. You're having a stress response. Completely normal. Her voice was steady, grounding. Just breathe through it. But breathing hurt. Everything hurt. My ribs ached from heaving. My throat burned. My hand throbbed where the glass had sliced through. The detective stepped back to avoid the mess, spoke quietly into her radio again. More officers appeared. They spread out through the hallway, taking statements from witnesses. I heard fragments of conversations. The yoga instructor describing what she'd heard. The younger man explaining how he'd blocked the hallway. Each piece building a case, constructing a narrative from this morning's chaos. The gray-haired paramedic touched my shoulder. We need to transport you to the hospital. Get that hand properly cleaned and stitched. Run some tests. Tests. My brain latched onto the word. They'd want blood work, toxicology screening, evidence collection. This wasn't just assault anymore. This was systematic, premeditated violation captured in digital files. Can you stand? The younger paramedic extended her hand. I gripped it with my uninjured hand, let her pull me up. My legs trembled, but held. The detective moved closer, her expression professionally sympathetic, but alert. I was already building her case, I realized, already planning the investigation. I'm Detective Carol Reyes. She kept her distance, respecting the space trauma victims needed. I need to ask you some questions, but they can wait until you're treated. Right now, I need that device. She pointed to the broken iPad still clutched against my chest. I'd been holding it so tightly the edges had left marks in my skin. I handed it over carefully, watched her seal it in a clear evidence bag. Chain of custody, admissible in court. The paramedics guided me toward the stretcher. My bare feet left footprints in my own vomit. Someone would have to clean that. Someone would have to sanitize this elevator, this hallway, that room on the 3rd floor where I'd lain unconscious and exposed. Story block 8 to 10. The stretcher wheels rattled across the building's threshold into blinding morning sunlight. I squeezed my eyes shut against the assault of brightness, turned my face away. The paramedics lifted me into the ambulance in one practiced motion. The younger one climbed in beside me, while her partner circled to the driver's seat. Through the open rear doors, I watched Detective Reyes speaking into her phone, gesturing back toward the building entrance. 2 uniformed officers emerged carrying sealed boxes, evidence from the massage room. My clothes, the table with its hidden compartments, everything that bastard had touched. The detective ended her call and approached the ambulance. She pulled a business card from her jacket pocket, held it out. I took it with my good hand, the card stuck crisp and official between my trembling fingers. We're executing a search warrant on his apartment right now. Her eyes were hard, determined. His computers, his phone, cloud storage accounts. We'll find everything. The doors swung closed before I could respond. The ambulance lurched forward, siren wailing to life. The younger paramedic, her name tag read J. Morrison, wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my upper arm. The squeeze and release felt distant, happening to someone else's body. Your pressure's elevated but stable. She unwrapped the cuff, moved to examine my injured hand more closely. The laceration needs about 8 stitches. Could have been worse. Could have been worse. The phrase echoed in my skull as she cleaned the wound with stinging antiseptic. Could have been worse if I hadn't woken up. Could have been worse if he'd been there when I regained consciousness. Could have been worse if those photos had already been uploaded somewhere unreachable, permanent, eternal. The ambulance swayed around corners. My stomach lurched with each turn. I focused on breathing through my nose, counting the oxygen canisters mounted on the wall. 1, 2, 3. Physical objects, tangible reality. Morrison started an IV line in my uninjured hand. The needle pinch grounded me momentarily. Saline dripped through the clear tubing, cold spreading up my arm. She attached monitor leads to my chest, and the machine began its rhythmic beeping. Heart rate 120. Too fast, but not dangerously so. Do you remember anything from the session? Her question was gentle, clinical. Any unusual smells, tastes? Dizziness before you lost consciousness? I closed my eyes, forced myself back to that room. The lavender-scented oil, his hands on my shoulders, pressing too firmly. The music, something with ocean sounds and wind chimes. Then nothing. A void where memory should exist. Just normal massage things at first. My voice came out hoarse. Then blank. I woke up on the floor hours later. She made notes on her tablet, stylus scratching across the screen. The ambulance hit a pothole, and we both lurched sideways. Equipment rattled in secured cabinets. The siren continued its endless wail, carving a path through traffic. My phone buzzed in the plastic evidence bag Morrison had sealed it in. Through the clear material, I saw texts lighting up the screen. My daughter Justine, my sister. Colleagues wondering why I'd missed our morning staff meeting. Normal life continuing while mine had shattered into pieces I didn't know how to reassemble. The ambulance slowed, backed up with a series of warning beeps. Hospital loading bay. Morrison gathered her equipment, prepared to transfer me to the emergency department team. The doors opened onto controlled chaos. Other ambulances, a trauma patient being rushed inside. Medical staff in scrubs moving with purposeful urgency. They wheeled me through automatic doors into a blast of cold air conditioning and antiseptic smell. Fluorescent lights blazed overhead, making me squint. A nurse met us at the intake desk, took Morrison's verbal report. Age, vitals, mechanism of injury, suspected drug-facilitated assault. The clinical terms made it sound manageable, categorizable. They rolled me into a curtained bay. 3 nurses converged, transferring me from stretcher to hospital bed, adjusting pillows, raising the side rails. One started replacing the field view with a hospital line. Another took more vital signs. The third photographed my injuries, the gash on my palm, bruises forming on my arms from the elevator door collision, the red pressure marks where the iPad had pressed against my chest. Doctor will be in shortly. The oldest nurse, silver hair pulled back severely, adjusted my blankets. We're drawing blood for toxicology and running a full panel. Sexual assault nurse examiner is on her way up from the 2nd floor. Sexual assault. The words hung in the sanitized air. I hadn't been raped, at least I didn't think so. But violation didn't require penetration. Those photos were violation enough. His hands on my unconscious body. His camera capturing angles I'd never see myself from, moments I couldn't consent to or prevent. Detective Reyes appeared at the curtain entrance. She'd changed into latex gloves, carried another evidence bag. We need your clothes for processing. She kept her voice neutral, professional. Hospital will provide you with scrubs. I nodded. The nurses helped me sit up, eased the borrowed paramedic jacket off my shoulders. Underneath, I still wore the massage room clothes, tank top and yoga pants that suddenly felt contaminated. His hands had removed these once already while I lay helpless. Now I stripped them off myself, reclaiming that action, that choice. Detective Reyes sealed each item separately. My bra, my underwear. Everything bagged and labeled with case numbers and chain of custody forms. I watched her work with methodical precision, building the prosecution's case one piece of evidence at a time. The curtain swept aside again. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a large examination kit. Her ID badge identified her as the SANE, Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner. She introduced herself, explained the procedure, asked if I wanted an advocate present. I shook my head. Too many people already. Too many eyes on my body. I just wanted it done, documented, finished. She worked efficiently, collecting samples under my fingernails, photographing every mark and bruise, documenting everything the investigation might need. Her touch was impersonal, but kind. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counted the perforations in each square, removed myself from the moment as thoroughly as any drug could accomplish. 11:25:9. The examination ended after what felt like hours. I pulled on the paper-thin hospital scrubs, felt the rough cotton scratch against my documented skin. My phone buzzed on the bedside tray. 17 missed calls, 32 messages. Word had spread somehow. Friends wondering where I'd disappeared to. Colleagues asking about tomorrow's meetings. The world continuing as if everything hadn't shattered. I ignored them all. Scrolled instead to the Wellness Center's website on the browser Detective Reyes had left open on her tablet before stepping out. The massage therapist's profile still smiled from the homepage. Professional headshot, credentials listed, glowing 5-star reviews from clients who'd never woken up to find themselves exposed and photographed. My thumb hovered over the reviews. I clicked through, reading praise for healing hands and transformative sessions. How many others had written these while remaining unconscious for the parts that mattered? How many had woken up never knowing? The detective returned with a cardboard cup of coffee I hadn't requested, but accepted anyway. The bitter heat felt real against my tongue, grounding. His apartment yielded results, she said, settling into the visitor's chair with practiced casualness that didn't quite hide the tension in her shoulders. Multiple external drives, organized folders going back 7 years. 7 years! I did the math automatically, calculated how many clients, how many sessions, how many violations. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. How many? The words scraped out barely above whisper level. 83 women we've identified so far. She watched me process the number, her expression carefully neutral. Some multiple sessions. Your footage spanned 3 appointments. 3. I'd been going monthly for nearly 4 months, but he'd only started drugging me after the initial consultation. Testing the waters first, waiting until I'd relaxed into trust. The calculation felt clinical, predatory, methodically planned. Detective Reyes pulled out a slim folder. We need to discuss next steps. The district attorney wants to move quickly before he can destroy additional evidence or flee jurisdiction. Arraignment is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? Less than 24 hours from now, I'd sit in a courtroom, face the man who'd violated my unconscious body. My hands started shaking again, coffee sloshing against the cup's rim. Will I have to? I couldn't finish the sentence. Testify? Eventually, yes. But tomorrow is just charges and bail hearing. You don't have to attend if you're not ready. The thought of him walking free, even temporarily, made my chest constrict. I imagined him returning to the wellness center, packing up his massage table, erasing himself before justice could catch up. Or worse, continuing business as usual with clients who trusted those healing hands. "I'll be there." My voice came out stronger than I felt. "What happens to the center?" Health department suspended their license pending investigation. "The owner claims complete ignorance, but we're examining whether she had any knowledge or involvement." I remembered the intake forms, the casual way the receptionist had handed me the herbal tea that first visit. How they'd rescheduled my appointments to ensure I always got the same therapist. The details I'd dismissed as personalized service now felt potentially sinister. Detective Reyes stood, collected her materials. "Victim Services will contact you about counseling resources. I'd recommend starting soon. Trauma like this compounds if left unaddressed." After she left, I sat in the sterile silence of the ER bay. Through the curtain, I heard other emergencies. A child crying, someone vomiting, the urgent beeping of monitors. Normal hospital chaos that had nothing to do with me. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. A text from my sister demanding to know why I'd missed dinner. We'd planned it weeks ago, one of our standing monthly obligations. I'd completely forgotten, lost in the aftermath of discovery. I typed out a response, deleted it, tried again. How do you summarize violation in a text message? How do you explain that the self-care routine everyone praised had become a hunting ground? Finally, I just wrote, "Emergency. I'm okay. We'll call tomorrow." The nurse returned with discharge papers and a prescription for anti-anxiety medication. She went through the instructions with practiced efficiency, highlighting follow-up appointments and crisis hotline numbers. I nodded along, absorbing nothing, just wanting to leave. The hospital doors opened onto parking lot sodium lights and cool night air. I stood on the sidewalk, realized I had no car. My vehicle still sat in the wellness center lot, abandoned when the police had driven me here hours ago. A patrol officer materialized beside me, keys dangling from his fingers. "Detective Reyes arranged transport to retrieve your vehicle, or we can drive you home if you'd rather deal with it tomorrow." Tomorrow? That word kept appearing like a threat. Tomorrow's arraignment. Tomorrow's explanations to work, to family, to everyone who'd wonder about the gaps in my story. "The car," I said. "I need my car." The drive took 15 minutes through darkened streets. The wellness center's parking lot stood empty except for my sedan, looking abandoned under the security lights. Crime scene tape still marked the building's entrance. I stared at the familiar facade, the cheerful welcome sign, the motivational quotes painted on the windows about healing and self-care. The officer waited until I'd started my engine, then followed me for several blocks before peeling off. Protection or surveillance, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. My apartment building appeared unchanged, despite everything that had shifted. Same lobby, same elevator, same hallway leading to my door. I unlocked the deadbolt, stepped into space that should feel safe, but didn't anymore. Block 1010. 6 months dissolved like sugar in water. I stood in my new office, smaller space, different building, away from anyone who might have heard whispers. The afternoon sun cut geometric patterns across my desk, where files sat in neat stacks. My hands moved through paperwork with practiced efficiency, signing off on quarterly reports that would have paralyzed me with anxiety before. The criminal trial had ended 3 months ago. Marcus, I still couldn't think of him without my stomach clenching, received 8 years for assault, invasion of privacy, distribution of intimate images. The civil suit settled quietly. His clinic dissolved like morning frost, the building gutted and repurposed into a pediatric dentistry office. Sometimes I drove past just to see the cartoon murals where threatening meditation quotes once hung. Therapy appointments filled my Tuesday evenings now. Dr. Patricia Chen's office smelled like lavender and leather, nothing medicinal or threatening. We'd worked through the nightmares, the hypervigilance, the way my body still tensed whenever someone approached from behind. Progress measured in small victories. Returning to the gym, getting a professional massage at a spa my friend Jade had thoroughly vetted, sleeping through the night without checking the locks 3 times. My phone buzzed against the desk. A text from my sister Angela appeared on the screen. "Still on for dinner? Bringing someone I want you to meet." I typed back confirmation, allowed myself a small smile. Angela's protective instincts had gone into overdrive after everything, but she'd learned to channel that energy into support rather than suffocation. The someone she wanted me to meet was probably another friend for my slowly expanding circle. I'd lost people after the trial. Some couldn't handle the details. Others didn't understand why I'd been so careless, as they put it. The ones who remained meant everything. The advocacy work had started small. An interview with a local reporter about consent violations in medical settings. That article led to consultation requests from the state licensing board, then speaking invitations at professional conferences. My voice carried weight now, transformed trauma into policy change. 3 massage therapy schools had implemented new ethics training based on recommendations I'd helped draft. I packed my briefcase as the office emptied around me. Colleagues called goodbyes from the hallway, normal workplace rhythms that felt almost mundane in their comfort. The elevator descended smoothly while I checked my reflection in the polished doors, wearing purple again, the color I'd avoided for months because Marcus had commented on it during our sessions. The parking garage echoed with my footsteps. I'd traded the old sedan for a newer model, something that didn't carry phantom memories of that night. My keys stayed accessible in my jacket pocket, not buried in purse depths. The drive home took me through familiar streets now associated with Thai restaurants and bookstores, rather than police stations and courtrooms. At the gym, 2 blocks from my apartment, I parked and grabbed my workout bag. The weight room hummed with late afternoon energy, clanging metal, rhythmic breathing, motivational playlists bleeding from headphones. I claimed a bench press station, loaded plates with deliberate focus. Strength training had become meditation. Each rep proof that my body belonged to me, responded to my commands, existed for my purposes alone. Sweat slicked my skin after 40 minutes. The shower in the locker room ran hot and clear, washing away exertion without the vulnerable exposure that used to trigger panic. I dressed in clean clothes, caught sight of myself in the mirror, shoulders broader from consistent training, jaw set with determination that hadn't existed before. Angela waited at the restaurant when I arrived, a woman beside her with kind eyes and silver-streaked braids. They stood as I approached. "This is Dr. Helena Price," Angela said. "She runs the trauma recovery center I mentioned." Helena extended her hand, her grip firm and brief. "Your sister talks about you constantly. I've followed your advocacy work with the licensing board." We sat, ordered wine, fell into conversation that flowed easier than expected. Helena described her center's expansion plans, mentioned needing board members with lived experience and policy expertise. The invitation hung unspoken, but clear. Later, walking back to my car under streetlights that no longer seemed menacing, I considered the offer. 6 months ago, I'd barely managed existing. Now opportunities multiplied. Chances to transform poison into purpose, to ensure others received protections I'd lacked. My apartment welcomed me with familiar comfort. I dropped my bags by the door, didn't check the locks obsessively like before. The laptop opened to half-finished draft testimony for an upcoming legislative hearing. I read through my words, made minor edits, felt satisfaction rather than rage while describing necessary reforms. The balcony door stood open to evening air. I stepped outside with herbal tea, watched the city lights pulse with countless stories. Somewhere out there, someone else might be experiencing violation, might feel their world collapsing. But systems were changing, slowly, laws strengthening, awareness spreading. My voice joined others demanding better, building scaffolding that could catch the falling. Sleep came easier now. I settled into bed with a mystery novel, read until my eyes grew heavy, then switched off the lamp without ceremony. Darkness felt neutral rather than threatening. Tomorrow held another full day. Work, meetings, maybe coffee with Jade, definitely the Advocacy Coalition call about expanding patient rights legislation. I closed my eyes, breathed deeply, let consciousness drift. The nightmares still visited occasionally, but less frequently. And when they came, I knew how to ground myself, to separate past trauma from present safety, to wake without that crushing weight of helplessness. Healing wasn't linear. Some days still knocked me sideways with unexpected triggers, but the trajectory pointed upward, forward, toward a version of myself I was building deliberately. Stronger, more aware, refusing to let violation define the boundaries of my existence. The city hummed beyond my windows, indifferent and endless. I existed within it now, without apology, reclaimed and purposeful, and imperfectly whole. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.